It's a great day when you're hanging around. Nothing's ever gonna bring me down. Good times are coming our way. Whenever, wherever, whatever today.
Today is going to be a great day. I am Nikki G, your host. Welcome to the Lone Doctrine, the food for thought, exploration station, and your place in making today better than yesterday. We keep it short, simple, actionable, and practical. This month, we've been talking about self-care and the importance of self-care. Sometimes the summer season can be so carefree. In some regard, we're talking about taking off time, going on vacation, getting in the much needed recharge. But some of us are still in the mix of work, stress, change, and hardships. I always tell my loved ones, life happens all at once. The good and the so-called bad can happen sometimes at the same exact time. So in the mix of the ever-evolving, always happening life, remember our own well-being is a must. We've talked about the good and not so good aspects of self-care, but today I want to explore deeper into steps. One, you can take that you may or may have not considered. We had a listener write in recently and tell us that a couple points we brought up in our last episode really opened her up to thinking past the norm of self-care. How would you define self-care? Most would say exercise, getting enough sleep, taking time to do things you love, reading, listening to music. But what about these? These are the ones she pointed out. Self-care can be working towards banishing negative self-talk. Throughout the day, even when you feel like there's not enough time, there is always a moment you can take to flip the script. When you find yourself talking negatively to yourself, flip it and change your response even if you've already stated the negative. Or here's another one she brought up. How about mindfully accepting compliments? When's the last time you genuinely heard the compliment, absorbed it, cherished it, and genuinely said thank you? We sometimes have a mix of emotions when we receive compliments. We deflect. We live in denial and thinking, no, I'm not good enough. I don't look good, but thanks. Part of our self-care is showing gratitude and creating a circle effect of appreciation. If someone is taking the time to give, it will mean more to every person involved if you receive. This is a part of self-care. Have you thought past the norm in thinking what you could do every day to shift your self-care? The number one reason I hear for people's lack of self-care is that there isn't enough time. Time. What we make of it comes down to what we make a priority. Sometimes when we sit with the time we're given, we can find more time that we didn't know existed. Here's another great step to take with self-care. If you're anxious, stressed, or that person that always says there's never enough time, I encourage you this week to start a time journal. Write down everything you do with the exact time. For example, over a week's time, you may find pockets of time you didn't know you had, or find where time is being wasted. How long were you scrolling social media? How long were you watching TV? I'm not saying you're not deserving of some downtime, but sometimes just making the little adjustments to our day allows for free space to incorporate what essentially will make our life the best life. One thing in my personal journey that I came to find out was part of self-care was forgiveness. And in the same breath, resilience. We've touched upon these subjects before, but what I mean by them today is the ability to forgive yourself when you backstep. When you backstep, the most important thing is to then get back up and keep moving forward. I personally have had to work hard at the all or nothing approach. I'm either working and working and working and working, and then I burn out. And then those around me advise me to breathe and take a breath. Then at times I find myself binge watching shows and wasting so much time. Neither side is good, And the hardest part of it all is that when I started to take those so-called breaks, I'd start feeling guilty. I'd be so hard on myself, and then it would just spiral into more time wasters, heavier guilt, sadness, and sometimes even shame. I had to learn to forgive myself for my so-called backsteps, but more importantly, after the forgiveness stage, I had to get back up and keep working on a better balance. Have you ever been in this cycle, this back and forth of doing really well, and then you go on vacation and everything goes haywire? Maybe you have, maybe you haven't yet, but it is okay. What's not okay is giving in completely to the unknown abyss of temporary escapes that lead from one to the next. It's not always easy to pull yourself out from that merry-go-round, but a good place to start is creating better self-care. I'd like to explore the idea of loving yourself. Now, before we move on, how did that make you feel? Do you love yourself? No offense, but don't ask your ego, ask your heart and your soul. Do you love yourself? This is the core of self-care, and everything else just keeps us on a healthy path. Let's explore the most neglected and powerful act of self-care by Zen habits. Many of us, rightfully, focused on taking care of our health, eating nourishing whole foods, and trying to be active, while some may meditate and flossing and taking some time to disconnect away from devices. These are wonderful acts of self-care, and they are necessary and important. But there's one act of self-care that is very often neglected, and it might be even more important than all the others: the practice of loving yourself. In fact, this is so often neglected that when I mention loving yourself, many people don't know what that means. Many of us have never consciously done it. If we have, it's so rare as to be a forgotten memory. Loving yourself, we should do it throughout the day, like trying to drink 8 glasses of water. We should give ourselves at least 8 doses of loving ourselves every day. What is this self-love? Imagine pouring out love into your heart to someone you love dearly. What would that feel like? Now try doing the same thing for yourself. That's self-love, and it's a completely foreign concept for the vast majority of people. So many of us experience some sort of stress, pain, disappointment in themselves, angry at themselves, constantly feeling inadequate. Do you relate to this? I think most of us can find a good chunk of this in ourselves. This is a basic problem that most of us face every single day. We don't love big portions of ourselves. We beat ourselves up all day long. We stress out about uncertainty because we don't think we're good enough to deal with it. We don't trust ourselves to stick to something because we've formed a really bad picture of ourselves over the years. We get angry at ourselves for eating too much, drinking too much alcohol, messing up in a social situation, getting distracted and watching videos or playing video games, and so on and so on. We are harsh on ourselves and don't like how we look or who we are in many ways. This affects everything in our lives. It makes us more stressed, less happy, anxious, depressed, stuck, procrastinating, less happy in relationships, less focused, more likely to reach for comfort foods or distraction or shopping to comfort ourselves from the stress and pain of being who we are. But if we could give ourselves love, it would start to heal all of this. Everything could shift. We could deal with uncertainty and chaos and difficulty in a much more resilient way. Giving ourselves love is such an important act of self-care, and yet is rarely ever done. So how do we start giving ourselves love regularly? Set reminders for yourself everywhere you go. Put reminders on your fridge, on your computer, on your phone, in the bathroom, in your car, at your desk, near your TV. The reminders only need to be 2 words: love yourself. When you see the reminder, the act is very simple. Even if it doesn't feel natural to most people yet, give it time. So when you see these reminders, pause and feel any stress, pain, self-doubt, anger, frustration, anxiety you might be feeling. Let yourself actually feel it physically in your body for just a few moments. It's okay to feel this. Then, give yourself the balm of love. As weird or as silly as it feels, just try it. Imagine first that you are sending love to someone you love very much, your child, your parent, your best friend. Imagine them going through difficulty and send love from your heart to theirs, hoping to make them better. Notice how that feels in your heart. Now try it for yourself, generating the same feeling in your heart, but sending it to yourself instead. Feel the love as a healing balm. No matter how little you're able to generate, feel it wash over your stress, your pain, anger, doubt, like a thick, syrupy liquid soothing the pain. Let yourself receive this love like the love you've been craving. It's that simple. It only takes a few moments. Feel your stress and pain. Send yourself love. Let yourself feel it. Do it 8 times a day, or a dozen if you can. You need this care. Don't hold it back from yourself any longer. Whether it's the stereotypical way of caring for oneself, diving a little deeper, or reaching out from the norm, finding what works for you is most important. I hope we can continue to support you in writing your Lone Doctrine and making this life your best life. If you found value in the Lone Doctrine or you believe in our mission, we'd be so grateful for your support. We've partnered up with Patreon, a place where you, as a supporter, can become a patron in helping us stay on air and keep fighting the good fight. Just visit patreon.com/Lone Doctrine, patreon.com/Lone Doctrine, or the link in the show notes, and become a part of making today better than yesterday. Thank you so much for your consideration, and an extra thank you to our current Patreons. And until next time, self-care, 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 and keep fighting the good fight.